They didn't fire me in private. That was the first detail that told me everything I needed to know. It happened in the main conference room, the one with the glass walls, the polished table, and just enough space for everyone important to be present. Senior managers, department heads, a few people who didn't need to be there but showed up anyway because moments like that tend to attract attention. The kind of room where decisions are made to be seen, not just executed. I was already seated when they walked in. The CEO entered first, followed by his daughter, who carried herself like she had already stepped into a role no one had officially given her yet. Confident, composed, practiced. The kind of confidence that comes from being told you belong somewhere long before you prove it. I stayed where I was, notebook closed in front of me, posture relaxed, expression neutral. I had learned early on that in environments like this, the quiet ones are often underestimated. And that misunderstanding is useful. We're going to make this quick, the CEO said, taking his seat at the head of the table. His tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't warm either. It was efficient, controlled, the voice of someone who had already decided the outcome before the conversation began. A few people shifted in their chairs. Eyes moved between him and me, because everyone already knew what this meeting was about. They just wanted to see how it would happen. We've been reviewing internal roles, he continued, folding his hands together, and we believe it's time to restructure. Restructure. That word always sounds better than what it actually means. I nodded slightly, like I was listening carefully, like this was information I needed to process. It wasn't. We're bringing in new leadership, he added, glancing briefly toward his daughter before returning his attention to the room. Fresh perspective. Stronger direction. The room responded the way rooms like that always do, subtle agreement, quiet nods, the unspoken understanding that aligning with the decision was more important than questioning it. And as part of that shift, he said, finally looking directly at me, your position will no longer be necessary. No hesitation. No discomfort. Just a statement. Clear. Final. I didn't react. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. Moments like that don't come out of nowhere. They build quietly in small signals, in changes in tone, in conversations that feel slightly different than they used to. I had seen it forming long before that meeting. I just hadn't stopped it. Because sometimes, you don't stop things. You let them happen. His daughter stepped forward slightly, placing a folder on the table, the kind of gesture meant to formalize something that had already been decided. We appreciate your contributions, she said, her voice smooth, professional, carefully neutral. But we're moving in a different direction. Different direction. Another phrase that sounds better than it is. I glanced at the folder, then back at her, not challenging, not questioning, just acknowledging the moment for what it was. A transition. Just not the one they thought. I understand, I said calmly. That caught them off guard. Not visibly, but enough. Because they expected something else. Confusion. Resistance. At least a question. But silence creates a different kind of tension. You'll receive your final package details by the end of the day, the CEO added, already moving forward, already closing the moment like it was just another task completed. I nodded once. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. Not for the reason they assumed, but because clarity is valuable. And they had just given me exactly what I needed. The meeting ended quickly after that. People stood, gathered their things, avoided direct eye contact as they left the room, not out of disrespect, but out of discomfort. No one wants to be too close to a moment like that. It reminds them how easily it could be them next. I stayed seated for a second longer, then stood. Not rushed, not delayed, just precise. As I walked out of the room, I could feel the shift behind me. Conversation starting again, quieter this time, more controlled, like everyone was recalibrating after witnessing something they didn't fully understand. Because from their perspective, I had just lost everything. But perspective is often incomplete. I returned to my desk, packed only what I needed, nothing more. A few personal items, a notebook, a pen I had been using for years. The rest stayed exactly where it was, because none of it mattered. Not anymore. Before I left, I sent one email. Short, direct, no explanation, just confirmation. Then I walked out of the building without looking back, because Friday was never the end. It was the setup. Monday morning didn't feel different. That was the first thing I noticed. No rush, no urgency, no lingering tension from Friday, just clarity. The kind that comes when everything has already been set in motion and there's nothing left to question. I arrived at the building at the same time I always did. Not earlier, not later. Exactly the same. Because consistency creates confusion when people expect change. The lobby looked identical. The same polished floors, the same quiet movement of employees heading toward elevators, the same subtle hierarchy in the way people position themselves without realizing it. From the outside, nothing had shifted. But structure doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself. The receptionist looked up as I walked in, a flicker of recognition crossing her face, followed quickly by uncertainty. That made sense. As far as she knew, I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. "Good morning," I said calmly. She hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Good morning." Not a question. Not yet. I walked past her without slowing down. Because hesitation invites resistance. And I wasn't there to explain anything. The elevator ride was quiet. A few employees stepped in, glanced at me, then looked away, unsure how to process what they were seeing. Someone who had been dismissed on Friday, standing there like nothing had changed. That's the thing about perception. It breaks easily when reality doesn't follow it. The doors opened to the executive floor. And that's where it started. The first sign wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. A shift in posture. A change in tone. The security officer near the entrance straightened slightly as I approached, his expression moving from routine to attentive. "Good morning," he said. "Morning," I replied. No questions. No hesitation. Because systems update faster than people. I walked straight toward the main conference room. The same one. The glass walls. The polished table. The space where they had ended my role just 3 days earlier. Only this time, the room wasn't waiting for me. They were. The CEO was already there, standing near the head of the table, his daughter beside him, both mid-conversation. A few senior executives were seated, reviewing documents, preparing for what they believed would be another standard meeting. The moment I walked in, everything paused. Not immediately, but enough. Because presence changes a room before words do. "What are you doing here?" the CEO asked, his tone controlled but sharper than before. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the other side of the table and sat down. Not in the same seat as Friday. A different one, closer to the head. That detail mattered. "You were released on Friday," he continued, stepping forward slightly. "This is not appropriate." I looked at him calmly. "I'm aware," I said. The room shifted. Not loudly, but noticeably. Because now, the situation wasn't aligning with expectation. His daughter crossed her arms slightly, her confidence still present, but less certain now. "You shouldn't be here," she said. I placed a folder on the table, the same way she had. Only this time, it wasn't symbolic. It was structural. "I think we should begin," I said. Silence followed. Not confusion. Not yet. Just resistance. Until the door opened again. A legal team entered. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just precise. They moved into the room like they belonged there. Because they did. "Good morning," one of them said, placing additional documents on the table. "We're here to finalize the transition." The CEO frowned slightly. "What transition?" No one answered immediately, because timing matters. I opened the folder in front of me, turning it slightly so it faced him. Ownership, I said. The word landed differently than anything else that had been said in that room before. Because it wasn't a statement. It was a shift. That's not possible, he replied quickly. I didn't argue. I didn't explain everything. I just let the document speak. Share transfers. Holding structures. Accumulated equity. Quiet acquisitions made over time, layered carefully, structured in ways that didn't draw attention until they needed to. His expression changed first, then hers, then the rest of the room. Because understanding doesn't arrive all at once. It builds, piece by piece, until it can't be ignored. You were just an assistant, his daughter said, her voice quieter now. I met her gaze evenly. No, I replied. I was present. Silence. Heavy. Real. Because presence sees everything, learns everything, builds without being noticed. The legal team continued, outlining the details calmly, professionally, without emotion. Percentages. Authority. Control. By the time they finished, there was nothing left to question. The CEO stepped back slightly, his posture no longer the same as it had been on Friday. This doesn't make sense, he said. It does, I replied. You just didn't look closely. Another pause. Longer. Because now, the structure was clear. You planned this, he said. I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it. I just said I prepared. That's all it ever was. Preparation. While they focused on titles, I focused on ownership. While they evaluated roles, I evaluated structure. And while they decided who belonged, I decided what mattered. I closed the folder slowly, then looked around the room. Same people, same space, different reality. Let's continue, I said, not as a suggestion, as direction. And for the first time, no one argued.